To take revenge, this man had an iron armor sewn beneath the skin of his body. During his training, he would plunge his hands into a container filled with poisonous insects and let them bite and tear into his flesh. The pain was unbearable, yet Yuan never pulled his hands back because he was mastering the Dark 5 poison martial art. And he was doing all of this solely because he was obsessed with avenging his father's death. But the most bitter thing that tormented him was that his own sister had fallen in love with Suchin, the son of his father's killer, and had decided to marry him. The story begins in the year 1861, during a time when China is under attack by foreign forces. Despite the overwhelming invasion, the Chinese people refuse to bow before their enemies or surrender their homeland. Instead of accepting defeat, they dedicate themselves to mastering the ancient martial art of wushu. Through years of relentless training and discipline, they become incredibly powerful warriors, making them nearly impossible to defeat in battle. The story then shifts to a man who has been tied to a large wooden pole, awaiting execution. Just as his captors prepare to kill him, a group of soldiers suddenly arrives and launches a surprise attack against them. A fierce battle immediately erupts between the two sides as swords clash and warriors fight for survival. During this intense fight, we are introduced to General Suchin, a legendary martial artist who is famous throughout the land for his extraordinary fighting ability. Suchin leads the rescue mission with remarkable skill, effortlessly defeating his enemies. The man they save is revealed to be a royal prince. Grateful for having his life saved, the prince promises to reward Suchin by appointing him as the new governor. However, Suchin has no desire to accept such a powerful position. Instead, he requests that the title be given to Yuan, who is his wife's brother. Despite Suchin's sincere recommendation, the prince refuses to change his decision. Even so, Suchin remains completely uninterested in political power. His true ambition has never been to rule over people. Instead, he dreams of becoming a great wushu master and dedicating his life to teaching martial arts so that others can become stronger as well. That is why he tells Yuan that he should have been the one to receive the position of governor. Suchin also reveals that his greatest wish is simply to build a peaceful life with the woman he loves and start a family with her. 5 years pass. By this time, Suchin has married a woman named Ying, and together they have a young son named Feng. Suchin is now living a peaceful and happy life with his wife, his son, and his father. After spending years on the battlefield, he finally has the family he always dreamed of, and everything appears to be going perfectly. One day, Suchin's father, Wang Gun, arrives with troubling news. He tells Suchin that Yuan is finally returning home after many years. Although everyone else is excited about his return, one cannot shake the uneasy feeling in his heart. He warns Suchin to stay cautious because he fears that Yuan may not be coming back with good intentions. Wang explains the reason behind his concern. Years ago he was forced to kill Yuan's father. He says that he never wanted things to end that way, but Yuan's father had committed a truly horrific crime by murdering countless innocent people. Having no other choice, Wang ended his life to stop him from causing even more bloodshed. Even after all these years, Wang worries that Yuan may have returned to avenge his father's death. Seeing his father so worried, Suchin tries to comfort him. He tells Wang that there is probably nothing to fear and that Yuan is most likely returning only to visit his family after spending so many years away. Suchin reminds him that Yuan also has loved ones waiting for him here, and he believes there is no reason to assume the worst. The story then introduces Yuan, who has now become a respected governor. The very next day, Yuan arrives at Suchin's residence accompanied by more than 100 royal guests and officials. Despite the enormous number of visitors, Suchin welcomes every single one of them with warmth and generosity, making sure that all of his guests are treated with the greatest respect and hospitality. A short while later, Yuan himself finally enters the house. The moment Suchin sees him, it is obvious that Yuan has changed dramatically over the years. His face has become unusually pale, and there is a cold, intimidating presence surrounding him that makes him appear far more dangerous than before. He first greets his sister Ying before affectionately meeting her young son Feng. Afterward, Wang Gun walks over to speak with him. To everyone's surprise, Yuan respectfully apologizes to Wang. He tells him that he was never worthy of repaying the kindness and generosity Wang had shown him throughout his life. He admits that no matter what he did, he could never repay everything Wang had done for him. Although Yuan's words sound sincere, something about them feels unsettling. As Wang listens carefully, an uneasy feeling begins to grow inside him. Deep down, he senses that something is terribly wrong, and he cannot shake the suspicion that Yuan may be hiding his true intentions behind those polite words. After the gathering comes to an end, Yuan returns to his residence, where Wang Gun decides it is finally time to speak openly about the past. Wang tells Yuan that he never wanted to kill his father, but he had been left with no other choice. He explains that Yuan's father had mercilessly slaughtered countless innocent people, and stopping him was the only way to prevent even more bloodshed. Wang sincerely apologizes for what happened and tells Yuan that he has carried the burden of that decision for many years. Looking him in the eyes, he says that he hopes Yuan can someday forgive him for taking his father's life. Yuan listens to every word without showing much emotion. After a moment of silence, he calmly replies that he has already forgiven him. For a brief second, it appears as though all the bitterness between them has finally come to an end. However, that peace lasts only an instant. The moment Yuan finishes speaking, he suddenly launches a vicious attack against Wang using the same deadly martial arts technique that once belonged to his father, a forbidden move known as five-punch poison. The devastating strike lands before Wang has any chance to defend himself. The poison immediately takes effect, and Wang collapses to the ground. Within moments, he dies, finally becoming the victim of the revenge he had feared for so many years. Hidden nearby, Ying and her young son Feng witness the horrifying scene unfold before their eyes. Terrified, they immediately try to escape from the estate. Unfortunately, a massive army has already surrounded the area. Before they can get very far, the soldiers capture both of them and drag them back before Yuan. Meanwhile, Suchin remains completely unaware of everything that has happened. He is still outside entertaining the royal guests and making sure every visitor is properly welcomed. Suddenly, one of his loyal men rushes toward him in panic and delivers the devastating news that Yuan has murdered his father. Without wasting another second, Suchin races back to his home. The moment he arrives, he is greeted by a horrifying sight. The courtyard is covered with the bodies of his loyal men, all of whom have been brutally slaughtered. In the middle of the bloodshed lies his father's lifeless body. Before Suchin even has time to process his grief, two assassins sent by Yuan suddenly ambush him. They attack with deadly intent, hoping to finish him off immediately. However, as the fight begins, they quickly realize they have made a terrible mistake. Suchin's martial arts skills are on an entirely different level. Every attack they launch is effortlessly countered, and it becomes obvious that they stand absolutely no chance against him. Knowing they cannot win, both assassins abandon the fight and flee for their lives. Determined not to let them escape, Suchin grabs his sword, mounts a horse and races after them. Elsewhere, Yuan stands before a portrait of his late father while holding one gun's severed head in his hands. It is his way of proving that he has finally avenged his father's death. Moments later, the two assassins arrive and admit that they failed to kill Suchin. Before they can explain any further, Suchin himself storms into the area. His eyes burn with rage as he points his sword toward Yuan and vows that he will never allow him to leave alive. Without another word, he charges forward, and an intense battle erupts between the two warriors. The fight is brutal from beginning to end. Although Suchin is an extraordinary martial artist, Yuan gradually gains the upper hand. His movements are faster, his strikes are more ruthless, and Suchin struggles to keep up with him. Eventually, Yuan unleashes his ultimate technique, the deadly poison punch, with the intention of killing Suchin once and for all. Just as the fatal blow is about to end Suchin's life, young Feng suddenly runs into the battlefield. He throws himself at Yuan's feet, clings tightly to his leg, and desperately begs him to spare his father's life. Instead of delivering the final strike, Yuan decides on a crueler punishment. He grabs Suchin and throws his nearly lifeless body into a raging river. The moment Ying witnesses her husband being swept away by the powerful current, she does not hesitate for even a second. She jumps into the river after him, risking her own life in an attempt to save him. Against all odds, she survives the violent waters and eventually discovers Suchin lying unconscious along the riverbank. Although she is completely exhausted, Ying refuses to give up. Using the last bit of strength she has left, she places Suchin onto a makeshift stretcher and begins dragging him across the rough terrain. She continues pulling him for several exhausting hours. The effort is so intense that her hands begin to bleed, but she never stops. Eventually, she reaches a steep mountain and desperately cries out for help. However, after pushing herself beyond her physical limits, Ying suddenly loses her footing. The stretcher carrying Suchin begins sliding rapidly down the mountainside. At that very moment, a female warrior named Yu appears out of nowhere. Reacting instantly, she catches the falling stretcher just before it disappears over the edge, successfully saving Suchin's life. Yu then takes both Suchin and Ying to her home, which is built high on top of the mountain. She allows them to stay there and recover in safety. Using her knowledge of traditional medicine, she prepares several herbal remedies to draw the poison out of Suchin's body while also carefully treating Ying's injury. The following night, Suchin slowly regains consciousness. However, when he attempts to move, he looks down at his legs in horror and realizes that they have become completely paralyzed because of Yuan's poisonous attack. Unable to accept his condition, Suchin breaks down in tears. He believes that he has become completely useless and that he will never be able to rescue his son. Worse still, he becomes convinced that Yuan will eventually kill Feng, and there will be nothing he can do to stop it. Seeing Suchin drowning in despair, Ing gently tries to comfort him. She tells him not to lose hope and reminds him that Yuan would never go so far as to murder an innocent child. Several more weeks pass, but Suchin's condition shows very little improvement. The emotional burden becomes too much for him to bear. He falls into a deep depression and begins drinking heavily every day in an attempt to escape the pain and forget everything he has lost. One day, while Suchin is sitting outside, a highly venomous snake quietly crawls toward him, preparing to strike. Before it can bite him, Ing notices the danger. Without showing even the slightest hesitation, she grabs the snake with her bare hands and throws it out of the window. Surprised by her courage, Suchin asks whether she was not afraid of such a deadly snake. Ing smiles sadly and tells him that no snake could ever frighten her as much as the thought of losing him. She admits that her greatest fear is that Yuan will completely destroy their family. Her words awaken something deep inside Suchin. He suddenly realizes that if he truly wants to save his son, he can no longer continue feeling sorry for himself. He must become stronger than ever before. Filled with renewed determination, Suchin begins training once again with absolute dedication. He pushes his body far beyond its limits every single day. Through relentless effort and unwavering determination, he gradually regains his strength. Before long, he not only makes a full physical recovery but also elevates his martial arts skills to an entirely new level. One day, while practicing alone, Suchin suddenly notices two mysterious figures, a white swordsman and a black swordsman. Before he can approach either of them, both warriors suddenly disappear into another dimension. Suchin has never witnessed anything like it before and is left completely astonished. Soon afterward, Suchin encounters an ancient hermit whose mystical powers seem impossible to explain. After witnessing the old man's incredible magic, Suchin respectfully asks him to accept him as his disciple. The old hermit agrees, but only under one condition. He tells Suchin that he must first defeat the mysterious white warrior before he can become his student. Without hesitation, Suchin accepts the challenge. A fierce battle begins between Suchin and the white warrior. As the fight continues, Suchin gradually realizes an incredible truth. The white warrior is not a real person at all. He is merely the physical manifestation of Suchin's own dreams, fears, and inner imagination. The battle is not against another opponent, it is a battle against himself. Later that evening, everyone gathers together to share dinner. While they are eating, Ing carefully examines Suchin's hand and checks his physical condition. To her complete amazement, she discovers that the paralysis caused by Yuan's poison has vanished entirely. Suchin has recovered completely, proving that his relentless determination and unwavering spirit have finally allowed him to overcome what once seemed impossible. Another year passes, and Suchin continues dedicating every single day of his life to his training. One day, Ing quietly decides to follow him because she wants to discover where he disappears every day and how he has become so much stronger. She secretly follows him through the mountains until she finally reaches the place where he trains. To her complete surprise, she discovers that Suchin has been practicing entirely by himself all this time. There are no masters guiding him, no training partners, and no one helping him improve. He stands alone, repeatedly smashing rocks and other solid objects apart by crashing into them with his own body, pushing himself beyond every physical limit. Watching him suffer through such brutal training leaves Ing speechless. She walks toward him and asks, "Have you really been training here all alone for all this time?" Suchin looks at her and calmly replies, "It doesn't matter to me whether everything I've experienced here is real or nothing more than a creation of my own imagination. I honestly don't care anymore. The only thing that matters is getting my family back. No matter what I have to do, I want to save my son and see him one more time." Those heartfelt words completely break Ying's heart. Deep inside, she has been carrying the same pain. More than anything else in the world, she longs to see their son again, and hearing Suchin express the very same wish fills her with overwhelming sadness. From that day onward, Suchin pushes himself even harder than before. Every training session becomes more intense, and his strength increases dramatically. Eventually, the mysterious white warrior tells the old hermit that Suchin has finally overcome his greatest weakness. He has gained complete confidence in himself and is now fully prepared for whatever battle lies ahead. This is proven by the fact that Suchin has finally defeated the white warrior. At that very moment, Suchin also realizes the truth, that the white warrior, the black warrior, and everything he experienced during his mystical training were nothing more than manifestations created by his own mind. With that realization, Suchin's long and difficult training finally comes to an end. When he returns home, he notices a letter left behind by Ing. As he opens it, he discovers that she has gone to rescue their son, Feng, by herself. Meanwhile, Ing arrives at the place where Feng is being held captive. The moment Yuan sees his sister standing before him alive, he is completely stunned. He had believed she was dead all this time. Her survival immediately makes him realize something even more alarming. If Ing is still alive, then Suchin must also be alive. Not long afterward, Suchin himself arrives at Yuan's stronghold to rescue his family. He fights his way through every guard standing in his path, defeating them one after another with overwhelming ease. Realizing that Suchin is getting closer, Yuan orders his soldiers to bury Ying alive before Suchin can reach her. The soldiers lock Ying inside a coffin-like chamber and bury her beneath the ground while she is still alive. To make sure nobody can ever rescue her, Yuan immediately executes every guard who knows the exact location of her burial, ensuring that no one alive can reveal the secret. Meanwhile, Suchin continues fighting through the remaining soldiers until every last guard has been defeated. At last he finally comes face to face with Yuan. This time, however, the outcome of their battle is completely different from before. Suchin has grown unimaginably stronger through his relentless training. His movements are so fast and precise that Yuan cannot even touch him. Every attack Yuan launches is effortlessly avoided or countered. During the fight, Suchin drags Yuan into a deep well filled with highly venomous snakes. Wrapping a heavy iron chain tightly around his arm, Suchin unleashes an incredibly powerful attack that completely shatters the protective armor covering Yuan's body. For the first time, Yuan finds himself completely helpless. Just as Suchin is about to deliver the final blow and end Yuan's life, Feng suddenly stops him. His son desperately tells him that Yuan is the only person who knows where Ying has been buried. If Yuan dies now, they may never be able to find her. Without wasting another second, Suchin immediately rushes into the forest to search for Ying. As fate would have it, heavy rain suddenly begins pouring across the area. The rain washes away the loose soil, eventually revealing the outline of a buried coffin hidden beneath the ground. Suchin quickly realizes that Ying is trapped inside. He desperately digs her out and opens the coffin. Sadly, he is already too late. Ying has suffocated to death. Several years pass after this heartbreaking tragedy. The story then shows Suchin once again, but he is no longer the fearless warrior he used to be. The pain of losing Ying has completely destroyed him. He has become an alcoholic, spending most of his days drinking until he can barely remember who he is. His grief has driven him to the edge of insanity. Feng refuses to abandon his father and does everything he can to help him recover. However, Suchin's condition has become so terrible that it seems almost impossible for him to return to the man he once was. Around this time, a man named Mao enters the story. He takes Suchin into his home and tells him that he knows exactly who he is. "You are one of the greatest fighters I've ever heard of," Mao tells him. Unfortunately, Suchin can no longer remember his past. He cannot even recognize the man standing before him. Mao then tells Suchin about an underground fighting arena where he competes regularly. He invites Suchin to come and watch the fights whenever he wants. Later, Suchin accompanies Feng to watch one of Mao's matches. Since he is attending only as a spectator with his son, he is not permitted to enter the arena. To help him get inside unnoticed, Mao gives Suchin his hat. Once they enter, they witness a terrifying sight. A massive foreign fighter is mercilessly beating a Chinese warrior inside the ring. Soon afterward, Mao's own match begins, and his opponent turns out to be that very same foreign fighter. Mao attacks him repeatedly with everything he has, but none of his strikes have any effect. The foreign fighter barely even reacts. Suddenly, the giant leaps high into the air before crashing down onto Mao with tremendous force. The impact shatters Mao's ribs, killing him almost instantly. Watching this horrifying scene, Feng can no longer control himself. He runs into the ring and begins biting the giant fighter's leg in a desperate attempt to stop him. The enraged foreigner grabs Feng by the throat and lifts him high into the air. Unable to breathe, Feng desperately cries out for his father. In that instant, Suchin finally steps into the arena. Without saying a single word, he throws one devastating punch directly into the foreign fighter's head. The tremendous impact sends the giant crashing onto the ground, killing him instantly. Immediately afterward, two more fighters jump into the ring, determined to avenge the fallen champion. However, neither of them is capable of matching Suchin's incredible strength. He completely overwhelms both men, defeating them with ease. During the fight, one of the opponents manages to stab Suchin with a knife. Instead of slowing him down, the injury only fuels his rage. Consumed by anger, Suchin immediately kills the man who stabbed him. With the battle finally over, Suchin leaves the arena together with Feng. The story then reveals that Suchin never abandons his martial arts again. He continues training for the rest of his life, constantly improving both his mind and body. Over time, his legendary skills become known throughout the world, and Feng follows in his father's footsteps. Eventually, both father and son earn worldwide fame as two of the greatest martial artists of their generation. With their legacy firmly established, the story finally comes to an end.